Welcome to another impactful episode of Communicate with Impact. My lovely guest today is Marie Claire from Australia. Hi, Marie Claire. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Nice to see you, Amit.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you on my show. Now, Marie Claire is an author of Trusted to Thrive. And I would also mention that she's so generous that she actually gifted me her book as well. And now I have a signed copy, by the way, and I love it. So Marie is an expert when it comes to leadership. And I would ask you, Marie Claire, if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm a speaker, a facilitator, a coach, and I am also a leadership mentor. And I work with teams and leaders to help them build trust in order to improve accountability and to increase loyalty and team engagement.
Wow, that's very interesting. How did you came up with the name Trusted to Thrive?
Oh, well, you know what? I didn't actually come up with it. I did a few polls with a whole lot of my blog readers. And one of the people actually who read the book came up and said it should be trusted to thrive. And his interpretation was that you have to be trusted in your team to thrive. And when I really thought about it, I thought, well, that's so true, because, you know, if we want to thrive in our teams, we have to feel trusted by our boss, we have to feel trusted by our teammates. And when we get that, then so many beautiful things can happen.
Yeah, that's actually true and insightful. How would you define trust?
It really is the ability to confidently rely on others to do the right thing and make good on their promises. So reliability is really at the heart of trust. And if you look at the etymology of the word trust and where it comes from, it's been around since I think the 1200s. And even the definition back then was to be able to rely on people. So it's that consistent ability that people will do the right thing and they're not going to, leave us to our own devices or tell us off if we do the wrong thing, and that they're really there to support us.
And so I assume that, it's a quality sort of a thing, which any person can have. Like, it's not just required trust. Like, you don't have to be a leader to get into this sort of a thing. You can be trustworthy at any levels and gain that momentum or thrive to be in the organization, right? It's going to help you better.
Yeah, it's really at the heart of I suppose emotional intelligence, you could say. So what I mean is that you really can't lead without it. In fact, even as an employee, even if you're not a leader, you still need to be trusted by your teammates and your boss. So it's very much a part of that social contract that we have with others, that we, are doing, sometimes we think of trust as being one way. It's all about, hey, I can't trust people, but we don't realize that it's actually within our control too. So we have to be doing the right things for people to trust us. But sometimes that part's missed. And so we look at it outwards, but we're not looking inwards. And it's part of how our brain has been developed as well. But when we really work on ourselves to be more trusted by others, the results that it gives us and our teams and our companies are actually phenomenal.
Interesting. And we're going to deep dive a little bit on this. However, let me ask you this. I've been curious since I got the book. What made you to write this book?
It's honestly, I've been working on this topic since 2014, and I've just so this book has been in the making for a very long time. And I, particularly during the pandemic, which I did write it during one of Melbourne's lockdowns, I was finding a lot of leaders were really worried about how to build trust with people now that they had a hybrid team. And so I decided to really put pen to paper and just really provide a guidebook to make it easier for leaders who really want to do the right thing by their people. And it's so much better for our mental health. The research is coming out now that people that have a trusted leader are less likely to have mental health issues from work. So it improves our well-being, improves loyalty. So the benefits of trust in the workplace are absolutely huge. And so a leader that chooses to learn more about it and develop the skills to build it, not just with their team, their direct reports, but their boss and people in other teams as well, really does have the edge.
What do you think is psychological safety, and why is it important?
Yeah, so it's when we can take risks, be ourselves, and know we're not going to get told off. So It's so important for us as human beings that we feel that we can speak up about issues and say when we're unhappy, and be because one of the beautiful things about teams in particular is usually people are more likely to be accepted for their idiosyncrasies in a team. And so to be able to create that safety is really important for people to be able to say when there's an issue, or to let people know that they don't understand the rules or the expectations or the deliverables. So when you have that honesty, you can really talk about the problems deeply so that they don't sidetrack you as a leader. And we really need this to function properly as a team. And it's so good for our well-being, because if you are in an environment that doesn't feel safe, it really does impact your mental health quite detrimentally.
True. And I can relate to it when you said that, because there's been a couple of instances, even for me, where, voicing out is like a threat. And, when that happens, you actually not only suffer of things that are not going in the way you want, or probably you want to share. The second is, that you're like in a dead end zone, that there's nothing to do and so on. Would you mind sharing something on these each? What exactly is this model? You mentioned that it's an achievement zone model, but how did you come up on it, and what exactly it means?
Yeah, so there's a woman by the name of Dr. Amy Edmondson, a Harvard professor, and she actually coined the term psychological safety in the workplace. And a few years ago, I was watching I think it was a TED talk that she did, and she said that when you combine psychological safety with high standards, they collide to create high performance. And I thought that was very interesting. And I do a lot of research in organizations, and I had done quite a big research study in a big government organization in the IT department. And I spoke to about 30 employees about what they needed from the leadership team to trust them. And when I unpacked my research, I found out that there were 4 teams. So the apathy zone, which is low psychological safety and low accountability. And I changed it to accountability because I found that was more of the issue than high standards. And what I found is that in an apathy zone, people don't feel safe at all. And it's very much self-preservation. And what they're doing is just doing anything that they can to not get into trouble. And it could be because they have a leader that undermanages them. So a leader might be working on other projects outside of the team that are more interesting, or a leader that's very technically based and hasn't had the leadership training, or doesn't really like leading people, would just prefer to hide away and do the technical work. Or a leader that can often tell people off for not doing work properly. And so people are fearful. There's a lot of blame, a lot of gossip. People fall into this zone when they're ready to leave their job. It's where we fall into when it all gets too much. So when you were saying that you felt unsafe at that time, you probably fell into that apathy zone and knew it was time to leave. Yeah, it's quite fascinating. And then we have the abatement zone. Now, when I was doing the research on this, I actually thought, this is very much a comfort zone. And I was looking for an A word, but abatement was perfect because it means declining in performance. And that's what's happening in abatement zone. So what's happened in these teams is they might have had some past success and they're still riding on that. So there's this hubris where they think they're really, really good. They don't have to change. They don't have to grow. They don't have to learn. That they're so good, they can just keep doing what they're doing. And so what happens in a team like this is that you'll find that the leader themselves might not be held accountable by the person above him or her. Or they might be having personal issues, everything's too much, they've, not really able to stretch themselves. So they're kind of just coasting, their team's coasting, they're not holding other people to account. And you find that over time, this team actually declines in performance, actually lower than apathy. But the sad thing is they don't know it. So high performers hate this team because, they go in, they want to change things. I've got this good idea, let's do that. And everyone goes, no, let's keep doing what we're doing. And you'll find that over time that people just keep giving the boss their work, they don't finish it, and it becomes a complete mess. And then we have the anxiety zone. Now, this zone I find in a lot of high pressure industries. So in IT and law and all sorts of industries where it's all about delivering to the client. And so it becomes about performance, not people. And so what you'll find in this zone is that people are working really, really hard, getting things done, and they feel disconnected. It can be quite lonely because you're working so hard. Sometimes the boss or the leader of this team might not be creating safety because, they care more about the work getting done and out the door. So people, that don't don't have much support. They feel on their own. They're kind of hiding away doing the work. They might be exhausted. There's a lot of burnout. A lot of, physical injuries occur in this issue because people are so worried about, disappointing people and not getting things done. And then we have the achievement zone, which is, of course, the zone we all like to be in. And this is the one that is really driven by a leader who really stretches people and is challenging them. And there's this real beautiful energy that we really never forget. And it's where people are stretched, treated like elite athletes to do better and better than ever before. And there's this real optimism, and people are actually exploring the future. They're curious, there's continuous improvement, and meetings are exciting. And there's this real feeling that the leader really supports people to do their best work. And there's this camaraderie, and it's this beautiful feeling that, really changes the whole mindset of the team. Because these 4 team zones, they not only represent where we are as individuals at any point in time, but our team's mindset. And then, of course, we have individuals in our team who are at different levels, at different zones as well. So that makes it quite interesting for leaders to be able to navigate and improve performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite fascinating when you were talking about the abatement zone and, it's a comfort zone. When you mentioned about the anxiety zone, I still remember one of my projects, it was Brazil, 43 people, and I was exactly in the same stage, just getting my work done. There was no so-called happiness in a way in the entire group, and we were just there. And there were instances of a bit of shouting here and there from somebody and so on. But I can imagine, and I can sense actually, what exactly you mentioned. They would change when it gets into the achievement zone because of the influence of the achievement zone, or they can be the bad fish in the pond as well.
Yeah, well, it depends how the team leader introduces them and inducts them into that team. So you've actually raised a very good point. So whenever we start a new role, we generally tend to be in anxiety. We're so worried about not pleasing our boss or doing the wrong thing. And when we start working in a job and, sometimes we're not learning things as quickly as we want, or we can actually fall into abatement, particularly if we don't feel supported. So you've actually raised a really good point. So what a really good team leader does is that they have really good weekly check-ins with a new starter, checking in with them to create that safety and connection and really align them to a meaningful future. And really helping them, understanding their personal goals, understanding their work goals, and really guiding them. And, in their delegation, they're very clear on accountabilities and what they need to do, and really introducing them to others. And it's really the responsibility of the team leader to help that person get into that achievement zone mindset. And I have to say, I was doing a keynote for 200 leaders not that long ago. And in that room, 60% of the leaders all put their hand up and said they're in the achievement zone. Now, statistically, that's not possible. It's actually, and it's not sustainable. Being in the achievement zone is actually really hard because you have to have the right positive mindset, that growth mindset, that things are working out. And of course, you're always going to have challenges. There are always going to be issues. But it takes a lot of work to actually, for the leader to keep themselves in that zone. And, me personally, I try to keep myself in that zone, but I have bad days. I fall into anxiety. Sometimes I'm really tough on myself and I have anxiety for longer than I'd like. It's not an easy thing. But I've done a lot of research with leaders that keep themselves up there, and they're working on it every week.
It's not like, yes, there are 4 zones, which is good for us to know. But for any team or a person individually, they are going to go through the up and down cycles as the project or the program, whatever you're doing, moves on, right? I think the key is that you need to, like you just mentioned, the key is to know that you have dipped into certain zone now, and it's time to come out of it and go back to the achievement zone. And I think the challenge for the leader is the leader not only has to do it for themselves, they have to do it for the rest of the group as well.
Yeah, and it's very true. And it's really being aware of it. And of course, when they're stressed, because when you're on a project, there's some tough deadlines, you might have a tough client. The pressure can be immense and it takes its toll. So, and if you're exhausted and tired, it can be very easy as a leader to yell at someone.
Charging, how you charge your battery, your phone battery or anything. And if you don't charge it every day, that means if you don't do the required things that you need to do with your team or yourself, it's going to drain. And then it takes more effort to get it back, right? Like if it goes to 0, and then it takes a lot more effort to start it from 0 to 1%. And it's the same thing for the battery. So make sure that you keep winding the things for the trust. Keep charging it, keep connecting with people, and make sure to talk about it. So I want to discuss now the next thing. You spoke about trust in three forces of trust, right? There's the micro trust, there is meso trust, and there is macro trust. So I want you to share what exactly these three things mean. Can you share some things on that?
Yeah, so these are really supporting and opposing forces that we have to be aware of. And what I mean by that, sometimes they work with us and help us build trust, or sometimes they're actually against us. And it all starts with ourselves. So the micro level is really about us. And within that, it's really about our level of self-awareness, because self-awareness is actually critical to being a good leader. It's how much we trust ourselves to lead. And of course, that's a really big thing. And you've all heard about imposter syndrome. But, if we don't even trust that we know what we're doing, people sniff that out and then they start to question it too. It's also about how much we trust others. If we're coming from a place where we just don't trust people, that impacts things as well. And, if we even go a little bit woo-woo, it's even about trusting, in a higher power. And there's a lot of research that when we trust that everything's going to be okay and we're being looked after by a benevolent force, we're more likely to, be a bit calmer and really get through tough times. And of course, during uncertainty, people look to us as leaders that everything's going to be okay. And if we're not calm and if we're really frightened, then, no one in our team is going to feel confident about what's going on. So you've got that level. So really that's, if you kind of imagine like a hula hoop around you and you're using that hula hoop and you're just holding it in front of you, if you were to add a second hula hoop, it would be really hard to balance it. So you have to get that first hula hoop ready and really strong. So really having that strong alignment and understanding who you are is really important. And that then enables us to build trust better with other people. So that's the meso level, which is the team level. These are our interpersonal skills, so our ability to build relationships and communicate really well. And so within the team, it's being able to manage different personalities, high performers and low performers, and to really make the time. What's really important is to be really intentional and build relationships. So one-on-ones are really important. How we run our meetings are really important for trust as well. And provided we're doing that really well, then it's so much easier as a team to really be able to, work with forces outside of our control, which is the macro level. And that's the external things like, pandemics or government regulations that change, or a new customer that comes along, and internal issues within our organization. So a new CEO or a new process we have to follow. All those things can really rattle our team and ourselves. But if we're strong in ourselves and we trust ourselves as a leader, it means that we build trust better within our team. And, those outside forces don't impact us so severely.
True, indeed true. I think the same thing, the key is to how do you manage yourself eventually. And I agree. I think, like, for example, I've been traveling and this is like my 6th country of work and stay. So I think trust is one of the key factors for me to say that, all right, I'm going to leave my base country and go to a new country and have the trust that, yes, I will be accepted. And yes, I can do and, help the country that where I'm going the same as, the country would do it for me. So yeah, trust is important. That keeps you going. Secondly, it also helps. And when a leader shows this trust in terms of his behavior, work, team also accepts that person and, trusts more on that person, relies on it. And I think it's very good for team building in that sense. Like, you'll have a stronger team going towards the achievement zone faster.
Yeah. And when we know that our boss trusts us and they're giving us more opportunities and they're, letting us work from home and not, checking in every 2 minutes, it's a really lovely feeling, and we're more likely to explore and look at new things and, be really loyal to that organization because we have a boss that we can trust.
True. I completely agree, because I've been with bosses who do ping every 2 minutes to know what's going on, and you really feel that, okay, I think I should quit.
Yeah.
But I'm lucky to be on the other side of trust more than this side. So, the anxiety zones have been lesser for me, and I'm so thankful for that. Again, probably I trust like you said, the universe, the world, whatever it is, and it gives me back the achievement zones more than the anxiety ones.
Yeah.
I'm happy for that.
Yeah.
So, I read a quote in your book, and I just like that. I've written it here, and I'm going to read it as it is. You said that you can't talk your way into trust. You have to behave your way into it. And I think that's really summarizes the things that we were just talking about, is that you can't talk your way into trust. You just can't tell people that trust the process, trust this, trust this. I think you have to behave so that you get into it, and that this statement, this thing really struck in my head when I read it. And I'm like, it's absolutely true. I can't just go ahead and talk or preach about trust the process, trust this, trust this. It's better that you have to show it.
Yeah, well, it's actually how our brain works. So one of the interesting things about our brain is that trust is actually processed through the limbic system in our brain. And that actually has no capacity for language. And that part of the brain, so you can't actually, it doesn't understand words, it only understands feelings and emotions. So to actually tell someone that they can trust you, particularly first off, and they hardly know you, I don't know about you, but if someone says to me, oh, you can trust me on this, and I've only just met them, I freak out. I feel a bit sick in my tummy because my brain's basically saying, you can't trust that, it's an emotion. So it's really a different part of the brain that, that part of the brain does process trust. So, what that part of the brain wants to see is that consistently over time, that person is behaving in a way that shows that they care about us and support us, and they're not going to do anything to hurt us. So, saying that straight off the bat, it's a bit of a flag for our brains.
True. No, I think I agree. I think that's exactly what happens. See, because I'll tell you what happens when we get onto a new project. Most of the time, people are so eager to kick off the project and start working and so forth that they don't focus on this area of, building trust properly. Mm-hmm. And what happens is that, see, in a project, I always say this, that there's going to be bad times. Yeah. And how you work in the bad times define the whole project and you as a leader. And I've seen this countless number of times, is that when things go wrong, it sometimes turns ugly. And that is where, and here's the interesting part. The interesting part is when you go and seek feedback from the people, they say that I don't feel, the sense of belonging is not there. I don't feel welcomed. I don't feel trust. And when you go to the leader and ask them, they're like, hey, I'm available all the time. I'm approachable. But now, to your point, it has to be built. And at least in IT projects, I don't see that building that happens that fast. Yeah. Work happens more faster than trust building, unfortunately.
Yeah, so it's based on neuroscience that found that there are 3 factors that our brain needs to actually feel safe in the environment. So our brains are constantly scanning every few minutes just to make sure that we're safe. And so subconsciously we're asking questions such as, do I belong here? Do I like the people in my team? Is it safe to be myself? Can I make a mistake? What's the future with these people? Do I have any career opportunities? Is there a future for this organization? And can I trust these people in my team to do the right thing by me? So one of the things I talk about in the book is I actually break it down into 3 areas leaders really need to be able to communicate both verbally and non-verbally. And that's also really important because our brains process trust in that part of the brain that only understands emotions. We can't just use words. We also have to use our nonverbal abilities as well. Even our facial expressions and how much we smile impacts whether people feel safe around us. So the 3 things, those 3 pillars actually catalyze to create trust. And the 3 things, the intersections between safety and connection and meaningful future are things like, how we run meetings and one-on-ones are really important, how visible we are. In the research I did in organizations, I found visibility was really, really big. And this was before COVID. So particularly for projects, the visibility of accountabilities, the visibility of decision-making, really important, how visible that leader is, how visible employees are to each other. All these things are really important for our brains to really trust the situation, how transparent information and communication is. And then of course, accountability, which we've covered a little bit before, are really important. So in terms of safety, we've kind of covered that, but just to give you a little summary of what connection means. So connection organization, it is so much more than just connecting people together, that sense of belonging. What I found in my research and in the work I do in organizations, particularly for big project teams, what they want to know is how everything works together. So it's up to the leader to really connect the pieces and parts. And by that, I mean, connect people to that whole project in terms of all the other people and what they're doing. So it's helping people to understand the meaning in their work and how it impacts others. So not just internal customers, but external customers as well. And even you, the boss, how does the work you do? Sometimes there's really mundane work, people have to do for you, just saying to them, hey, I thank you for your help finishing off that presentation or putting those slides together for me, and I can leave work on time to pick my son up from school. Something like that really helps people see that they're making an impact, because we really need to feel that the work that we're doing is valued by others. And then stepping into a meaningful future. So, people want to know that the work they're doing, that effort is actually leading to something. And so it's up to you as the leader to really explain the future and what that looks like to the team, for their career. What I found in my research is people really wanted to know that there were career opportunities for them. When there are no opportunities, there's been studies where if people are in a job that has no career opportunity whatsoever, they can never excel, never be promoted, their mental health and their well-being absolutely suffers dramatically.
True. I think so. The three key things are, being visible, that the leaders are visible, the team members are rightly visible to the right areas, internal customer, external customer. People know about them because, yes, there are many teams sometimes, and this is one of the things that the reason to start this whole podcast was to help people who are new to leadership, new to team, handling teams, or even new starting off their work, how they can be better at communication, confidence, trust building, so they can be more visible from their side as well, right? So absolutely right. Of course, appreciating team members and others from time to time for whatever work they do is always helpful. And I completely agree on the last as well, is that if there's no if there's no forecast of the future, or if they don't know what they are working towards, it doesn't get you attracted. Because I know this is a very interesting thing. I'll just like to share this with you and all the others, is that there was one project in one of my organization, and they were working for a largest aircraft in United States. And there was a person working there for a decade. And after a decade, when you ask the person, hey, because we assumed that the person would know a lot of things by now. And we realized that the person only knew what they were doing day in and day out. And rather than, when we took a step further, we also realized that it's not the person's fault, it's the manager's fault, because they never gave the right picture. They never portrayed what exactly that piece of work fits in the whole big sector, So imagine for a moment a decade's worth of work and you still don't know anything around that work. And what would you put in the resume is a big question now.
Yeah, and it's so sad because, that's really one of the things that a leader can use that's very underutilized to really engage people, is to actually help them see the meaning in their work. And when we feel that the work that we're doing is meaningful, it has such a positive impact on our lives. So I find it really sad, particularly when you have projects, and of course they're making decisions in this little box because they don't understand the bigger picture, which then, other teams find that team difficult to work with because they don't understand what's really going on, and they're making decisions that are flawed.
True. And I think that goes to that abatement zone in this case sometimes. Like if I take that person, every other person is doing good and so on and so forth, but it's sort of a comfort zone. Now, the question is in both ways, whether that person is the problem because they are in comfort zone and that's why it's a comfort zone.
Yeah.
Or the management is the problem. But yeah.
Could be both.
Could be both. I completely agree. I would recommend you to grab hold of the copy. You can see a copy there on her shoulder as well. Grab it. It's a fantastic read, Trusted to Thrive by Marie-Claire Ross, and How Leaders Create Connected and Accountable Teams. It's a lovely read. As you can see, there's a postmark, and I've got a lot of things that I've written down myself because I'm working, and as a project manager, these things would help me a lot to learn as well. Marie-Claire, over to you for any last things that you would like to share and probably close the call.
Yeah, sure. For those of you who are really interested in this topic and really are looking at improving their leadership and improving their team results, and particularly if you really feel like there's a better way and that you really care about your people and you want to create a thriving environment, it's hard to do this alone, and sometimes you do need support. So if you are looking for support, I do have a leadership mastermind called Tribe of Trusted Leaders. It's all online, and there's monthly learning, there's coaching with me. You also get to have a personality assessment to really build that self-awareness. And then there's the tribe, where you get support through the community. So you don't have to do it alone. You can learn and work with other leaders in different industries around the world, because it's all online, learning and supporting each other in the process, which is actually how we learn.
Fantastic. And if I'm correct, Marie-Claire, your website is marie-claireross.com, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic. And I'm going to add that link here, but just to give you guys a glimpse, this is the website. Please click on the websites. There's a wealth of information. Make sure to, also subscribe so that you get the weekly tips from her. Like I said, there's a wealth of information. These are the programs. There you go. These are the programs that she has. And, connect with her, go through the resources. Don't miss it out. I'm going to share the link anyways in the description for you to check it out. Lovely. Fantastic. Marie-Claire, thank you very much for coming on to the show and sharing your thoughts. Thank you once again for the book. And I really, really enjoyed it. And have a fantastic rest of your evening.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you very much.
Cheers.